how you take a compliment from somebody. It's important. And I realize that some of the best advice that I've gotten can impact all areas of your life. We've been taught our entire life that when opportunity knocks, to grab it. Watch the impact it has when you change the vibes. We can't sit around waiting. There will be times when opportunity comes and knocks on your door. You get one shot at this. And sometimes opportunity doesn't knock. The best advice are lessons that are taught by people super close to you. How great would it be at the end of our journey if we could... Commencement speeches are supposed to be insightful, motivating, thought-provoking, and leave you with immediate, actionable takeaways. We're going to check all those boxes today. I hope that you find this talk to be somewhat insightful, certainly a little bit motivating, definitely thought-provoking, and I get an F at the end of the next 20 minutes if I don't leave you with actionable takeaways that you can immediately implement after this call into your life. It's an honor to be here, and thank you everybody for joining me today. Before we get started, many of you might know that I lost my mom 2 weeks ago today. And I just want to share a minute or two talking about my mom, because it's gonna impact the speech and the talk that I'm giving today. So my mom was an incredible woman, incredibly bright, incredibly loving. She loved to play bridge, she loved her family, and she loved her friends. And so my mom died 2 weeks ago, and my mom wasn't great at a lot of things, but what she was good at the things that mattered most. And that was her family, that was her friends, that was her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren. But she wasn't great at certain things, and my mom wasn't great at technology. So if my mom wanted to use the computer and she wanted to get on a Zoom call, she had to call my niece, who lived a couple of miles away, and my niece would come over and set up the Zoom call. If my mom wanted to get on email, she had to call my nephew, who would drive over and click on and load on for my mom, and my mom would then use email, and then my nephew would sit there and hit the send button. She wasn't really great at technology. So I get a call from my mom, really not too long ago, and she said, I need a big favor from you. I'm like, oh, what, Mom? Anything. She goes, I want you to follow me on Instagram. I'm like, you're on Instagram? What? I'm like, all right, Mom, what's your Instagram handle? And she goes, Bridge Bunny. I'm like, Bridge Bunny? Mom, that's a porn name. She goes, I'm like, you're Bridge Bunny? I go, you can't be Bridge Bunny. Let's change your name. So she changed her name to Itz, I-T-Z for Itzler. It's Grammy. So the night before my mom's funeral, I went to my mom's Instagram account for the very first time. And I wanted to see who my mom was following. So I clicked on to It's Grammy, and my mom was following all of her kids, all of her grandkids, all of her great-grandkids that were on Instagram, and a couple of others. She was following the Last Man Standing Ultramarathon. She was following Hell on the Hill. She was following 2 Navy SEALs. It got a little bit weird. And then I said, well, I'm really curious. Let me see who's following my mom. My mom had about 40 followers. So all of her family members and her friends were following her. But then there was one outlier. And that was a race, a 24-hour race called the Royal River Relay out of Maine was following my mom. And I'm like, why in the world would one of the hardest ultramarathons, a 24-hour ultramarathon, be following my mother? And then it hit me. Why wouldn't you follow my mom? My mom gave the best advice of anybody that I've met in my life. My mom was an incredible mentor, and everybody could benefit from following and listening to my mom. And I realized that some of the best advice that I've gotten in my lifetime came from mentors and people like my mom, people that didn't have millions of followers, that only had 40 followers, people from all different walks of life, people that you would least expect it. And throughout the last couple of years, I've coined several of my life rules after the names of these people. And I thought today I would share 5 of the life lessons that I've gotten from people that have come into my life in the most unusual ways and in regular ways that have had the biggest impact on my life. And if just one of the 5 principles and rules that I've learned from these people resonate with you, then the next 17 minutes are going to be very well worth your time. So the first rule that I learned actually comes from my son Charlie, and I call it Charlie's rule, and you can call it Charlie's rule too. And by the way, these are rules that apply to everybody, wherever you are on your journey, whether you're graduating college, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a student, whether you're a teenager, or whether you're in your 80s or 90s. These are rules that are applicable to anybody, can be applied by anybody, and can impact all areas of your life. Charlie's rule. So my son Charlie is 9 years old, and last year he ran his first marathon. He completed his first marathon, 26.2 miles, at a Running Man event in Rome, Georgia. And immediately after he was done, for the next, I would say, week or so, people were coming over to Charlie at events, school, at football games, right after the race, and they were congratulating him. Charlie, unbelievable, man, you're 9 years old. You just ran your first marathon. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. And Charlie would go like this. Thanks. Thank you. And I pulled Charlie aside. I said, Charlie, when people give you a compliment, and they use the energy, and they use their energy, and they generally want to recognize an amazing thing that you have done, you can't take away their energy by just saying, thank you, and walking away. The proper answer is, thank you so much. That means so much to me. I really appreciate you saying that to me. Try it. We went over that about 15 times at dinner that night. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I really appreciate you telling me that. And I realized that many adults and children don't know how to take a compliment. And what that does is it sends a message to the person giving you a compliment. They're like, you don't really care. You're wasting an opportunity to have an incredible impact on the person that's taking the time to give you a thank you. Fast forward a couple of weeks later. I'm at a coaching event that I have, a coaching program, and I see my friend Melissa, and I tell her that story. I said, Melissa, this is crazy. I just had a really big, meeting with my son Charlie, and I told him the importance of accepting a compliment, and I realized that I'm not even great at compliments, and adults don't love taking compliments, and now that's a big opportunity to have an impact. And I give this whole shebang, and she's like, I get it, you're right. I come back about 15 minutes to the same table to Melissa, and I said, Melissa, people have been coming over to me at the event that we're at. They told me that you got an Airbnb for the group that came in the night before this coaching event and that you hosted a dinner. I'm like, that is so thoughtful. It was so meaningful to all the people that came in, and you did it. It was unbelievable. And she looked at me and she goes, thanks. Yeah. I said, Melissa, I just gave you a lecture about Charlie's rule and you blew it. How you take a compliment from somebody is not a throwaway thing. It's important. It registers with the person that gives you the compliment. It shows that you're listening, that you appreciate someone acknowledging your hard work and your accomplishment this graduation season. As 4 million people graduate and walk across the stage, as your kids get older, as you get sales and close on sales meetings and get move up the ladder and get promoted or run a race or run a marathon, and people come over to you and give you a congratulations, take it like a champion. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that to me. Thank you so much. And watch how they react. Charlie's rule. Pre's rule. A couple of years ago, I was giving a speech in Arizona. By the way, that might not seem like a big deal to you. Watch the impact it has when you change the vibration, and you take a compliment by looking somebody in the eye and truly thanking them. And be aware of the people in your inner circle that you compliment that don't do it back to you. Pre's rule. A couple of years ago, I was giving a talk in Arizona. I flew in and they had arranged for a car service to pick me up. I get greeted by someone that has a sign that says Itzler as I walk down the escalator. Shook his hand, he shook my hand, we proceed to the car. My speech was in 4 hours from now. I had 4 hours to kill. My driver's name was Pri. Pri said to me, Mr. Itzler, I noticed on Instagram that you like to run and that you love smoothies. I said, yeah, Pri, I love to run and I love smoothies. He goes, well, I noticed that you have 4 hours between now and your talk. I brought my running sneakers with me. There's a great mountain about 1.5 miles from where you're speaking, and there's a smoothie shop about 2 miles from that point. If you want, I'll take you over to the mountain. We can run up and down for about 1.5 hours, jump over, grab a smoothie, and then I'll take you over to your speech. I said, absolutely, Pri. I'd love to do that. He opens up the trunk, puts on his running shoes, changes from his Uber or driving outfit into his running outfit. We go to Camelback Mountain, up and down. Pri, for the last 4 years, has worked for me. What Pri did is what I'm doing right now on this call. We've been taught our entire life that when opportunity knocks, to grab it. And that's true. But opportunity doesn't always knock. We can't sit around waiting for opportunity to knock. And sometimes opportunity doesn't knock. What Pri did is he flipped that rule upside down. Pri created his own opportunity. This is a picture of Pri and I on the day that we met. P-R-E, in the parking lot. The trunk is open and he's about to change. Yes, there will be times when opportunity comes and knocks on your door. But as entrepreneurs, as thought leaders, as self-starters, we can't wait for that. We have to create our own opportunity. We have to put ourselves in situations where we can attract luck. We have to put ourselves in situations where we can make things happen. If none of the 10,000 schools, universities, elementary schools, and junior high schools that are having graduations this month don't call you, create your own opportunity. Have your own speech. Pri's rule. Mo's rule. On March 21st of this year, I woke up and I checked my texts. And I got a text that day. It was the 2-year anniversary of my dad's death. And the text was someone that I'm not even great friends with. But it was the first text in my inbox. And this is what it said. Jesse, I believe today is the date your dad went to heaven. I know every day is hard, but sometimes anniversary dates hit really hard. We're saying our prayers. Maureen and Todd. I checked my contacts. I have about 5,750 people in my contacts through over the years. Of the 5,750 people in my contacts, do you know how many people reached out to me on the 2-year anniversary of my dad's death? One. Maureen. Now, I'm guilty of the same thing because I don't call all my friends on the anniversaries of their parents' death or the date they got sober or big things that happened in their life on the anniversary, but Maureen did. And it made me realize, of the 5,700 plus people in my contacts, I will never forget that. I'll never forget that. You know how long it took Maureen to send that text? About 20 seconds. Jesse, blah, 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 your anniversary, send. 20 seconds. And the impact that text will have on me and my relationship with Maureen, forever. Maureen's rule. Take out a piece of paper and write on top of it notable dates. And start to create a list of the people that are important to you in your life that you want to reach out to on dates that are memorable and important to them. Do it by month. January, blah, 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 blah. May, March. May, Elise Itzler, this is the date. And send a note every year. It's not hard to do, but nobody does it. But Maureen did it, and now I'm going to do it. It's a rule that I learned at 55 years old, and it's Mo's rule. And it's simple, impactful, effective, and it works. The brownie rule. My senior year of college, I was at a crossroads. I was either going to go into the music business or I was going to sell a product called Aunt Franny's Brownies. I had a roommate in college who had an Aunt Franny. Every month she sent us a shipment of brownies. Man, I don't know what this woman put in the brownies, but they made everybody laugh. I'm like, I can market this. This is unbelievable. I can sell these brownies. So for my senior year, I took this advertising class, and for our final exam, we had to create a fictitious brand from scratch and do all the marketing and advertising around it. We had to create a billboard and packaging and a jingle, which I was good at. I was good at music. And so I said, okay, for my final exam for this advertising class, I'm going to use the class as my R&D department. If they like Aunt Franny's brownies, I'm going into the brownie business. So the way the professor did it, there were about 100 kids in the classroom. Everybody had to write down their name, put it in a hat, and the professor was going to pick out of the hat one person or 5 of the 100 people that were going to give an oral presentation in front of the entire class, a 30-minute State of the Union of the industry and you were going into and your product. I'm a senior in college. There's a 5% chance that I'm going to get picked. Like, nobody prepared. You didn't want to get picked. So the professor comes in. He goes, I'm going to do it the democratic way. Write down your name. I'll put it in the hat. I'm going to pick out the 5 names. So sitting to the right of me was this guy named Ronnie Cohn. Ronnie was a professional jackass. Ronnie bullied half the class for 4 years of college. So when the professor went to the room and came to me, I took 20 pieces of paper, I wrote Ronnie Cohn's name down, and I stuffed them in the hat. The professor is a true story. The professor goes around, gets all the names, picks out the first name. The first name that comes up, Jesse Itzler, the jackass, did the same thing. He put my name in. So I get up there and, unprepared, and 30 seconds into my presentation, the professor stops me. And he said, son, I want to know what your point of differentiation is. And I'm like, I'm a brownie. I'm moist and delicious. I could be gluten-free if you want me to be gluten-free. And he said, son, and he got pissed. There's 1,000 brownies that come out every year. Substituted for marketer, substituted for coach, advertising executive, lawyer, whatever you do, there's 1,000 of you every single year that come out. If you want to make it, your brownie has to be a different brownie than everybody else. Sit down. So I sat down embarrassed after that little tongue lashing, but I never forgot that lesson. Fast forward about 10 years later. I'm about 30 years old, roughly 10 years later. I'm starting a private jet company called Marquis Jet, except there's one problem. I have no airplanes. I get a meeting with the 800-pound gorilla, a company called NetJets, the largest private jet company in the world, 650 private jets, a multi-billion-dollar organization owned by Warren Buffett. And we sit, my partner and I, with the CEO, Rich Santulli, because we need access to his 650 airplanes. 12 minutes into our presentation, he stops us, and he throws us out of the meeting. He said, if you think, this really pissed me off, I'm giving 2 kids who never broke 1,000 on their SAT, which really pissed. I got a 980 on my SAT. I've convinced myself I've gotten 1,000. If you think I'm giving 2 kids that probably never broke 1,000 on their SAT access to my 650 planes, it's never happening. Kicked us out in 12 minutes. We're walking out dejected because where else are we going to get 650 airplanes to start our company? And the president grabs me by the arm and goes, that was unbelievable. I said, unbelievable? We got thrown out in 12 minutes. He goes, no. Santulli, the CEO, he never gives anybody 12 minutes. Come back next week, repitch. I want to learn more about this. I'll set up another meeting. We come back a week later, we realize we can never convince Santulli through a PowerPoint. The guy sees 100 PowerPoints a week. Our brownie had to be different. So we brought in our own focus group. We set up a table by the boardroom table, and one by one, 8 people came. Carl Banks from the New York Giants, Run from Run-D.M.C, a powerful female real estate mogul from New York. And one by one, they stood up and they said they would never buy a fraction of an airplane what NetJets was selling. But they would buy a 25-hour jet card, what our idea was in Marquis Jet. Santulli said, you know what? If you put up your own money, raise a little money, I'm going to give you guys a shot. A year later, The company was thriving. We went on to do over $5 billion in sales and ultimately sell that company to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway's NetJets division. Our brownie was different. We got the deal because we thought differently than everybody else that came in with the PowerPoint. I've been telling people forever, my wife says this to her employees all the time. If nobody taught you how to do your job, how would you do it? If you ripped up the playbook that everybody else, all the other college graduates were using to get a job, a traditional resume, what would your resume look like? How would you pitch? How would you retain your customers? How would you talk to your clients? How would you train your kids? How would you work with your kids? How would you thank people? How would you give a commencement speech? That's where disruption comes from. That's where innovation comes from. By being a different brownie. Every single day, a new brownie is born times 50 in your industry, whatever your industry is. You have to stand out. Be a different brownie. Charlie's rule, Pre's rule, Mo's rule, the brownie rule, and now I want to share my mom's rule. So my mom decided that she wanted to have our whole family get together. She made it mandatory in the middle of the month. She said that make sure everybody's there, and Jesse, make sure we have a photographer. So everybody came over to my house. My brother came in with his family. My sister came in with her family. I made sure all my kids cleared their calendar. We had this big family gathering, and then my mom took everybody in my family one by one and took a picture with each one of our children and my mom, and then me and my mom, and then Sarah and my mom, and then we took a big group picture. Almost like she knew something was going on. About 2 weeks later, it's Mother's Day. I take my kids to my mom's house to visit my mom, and then we had to leave that night. We were there for 4 hours. We had to leave that night and fly to another part of Florida for a charity event that we were attending. So I landed back in Atlanta where I lived the next day, and I called my mom at 9 o'clock. I told my mom that she was still the go-to person in my life for all kinds of advice, similar to the rules that I just shared with you. My mom's been sharing rules to me her entire life. And we made a plan for Father's Day. And that night, my mom was at her house. And my sister, who had been staying with her since my dad died, walked my mom to her bedroom at 11 o'clock. Halfway through the walk to the bedroom to put my mom to sleep, my mom stopped my sister. She said, "Jana, let's go back to the kitchen for a minute." She goes, "I want you to get the finest china that we have. Get the nicest glasses that we have. And I want you to get a bottle of champagne. And I want you to pour a glass of champagne for me and you." My mom doesn't drink. So they walk back to the kitchen. My sister Jana got like the best glass china that we have, poured a glass of champagne for my mom, poured a glass of champagne for her. They made a toast, took a little toast, and then went to bed. My mom never woke up. This year, this month, a lot of people are going to be toasting their graduation. We're going to be toasting all kinds of events. We'll be toasting at weddings. We'll be toasting when our kids are born. We're going to be toasting when we finish races, when friends get together. My mom toasted her life. And it made me think about the lesson that my mom was giving when she clicked that glass with my sister. How great would it be at the end of our journey if we could hit a champagne bottle with someone that we love and celebrate a life that we're proud of, a life of adventure, a life of love, a life of success, a life of failures, a life of children and grandchildren. My mother didn't have any pictures with celebrities. There was no galas that she went to. She didn't have any pictures of like famous people in the background or anything like that. She didn't have any of that. But she had an incredible life. And it was filled with experiences that she had with her family. It was filled with great moments. It was filled with a life of being present. It was filled with caring the most about the people that mattered the most to her. It was filled with incredible traditions. And it was a life that she was super proud of, and she could toast to it. It wasn't a life that played out on Instagram. It wasn't a life that played out on Facebook. It wasn't a life that was carried out by the media. But it was a life that on her last night of living, she could toast to and be proud of. Charlie, Pri, Mo, my professor who taught me the brownie rule, and my mom, they're not people that walk around with millions and millions of followers. They're not people that are ever going to get asked to give a commencement speech. They weren't valedictorians. They weren't on the cover of magazines. But they all had advice that deeply impacted how I live my life and how I'm going to live my life forward. We go to Instagram, 3, 4, social media, hours a day, looking for wisdom, looking for answers. We're on Google. But very often, the best advice, the best life lessons, the things that you can take that are thought-provoking and that are actionable are lessons that are taught by people super close to you, right under your own roof, if you're looking for them. So, as we close out this short 30-minute talk, I just want to remind everybody here of one thing. You get one shot at this. You get one shot at this. And when you see somebody that gives you a tidbit of advice, name a rule after them. It becomes memorable, honor them, and hopefully when you tell them, hey, Maureen, Mo, I made a rule at you. They look in you up in the eye and they say, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.